area a few weeks prior, but it doesn't take a great deductive leap to see a potential correlation. But there is one other possibility that, as far as I know, has gone largely undiscussed, but may have mirrored the intelligence collection efforts of Chinese assets like Xi by intentional design. And that possibility is called red teaming. Now, red teaming is not specific to the US military. You can find that phrase all over corporate America as well. But within the defense apparatus, it's a term we often use to describe those tasked with playing the part of adversary forces in war games or military exercises. These groups, some formal, some informal, are tasked with attacking existing plans, assumptions, tactics, procedures, equipment, training, and more, all to identify vulnerabilities in American defenses that are in need of shoring up. In short, red teams are often meant to operate outside the standard purview of domestic military operations and instead function as a surrogate for adversary action. In the Pentagon's 2003 report entitled The Role and Status of DoD Red Teaming Activities, it explained that red teams playing the role of adversary forces are sometimes tasked with emulating the known capabilities and tactics of an opponent. But in other instances, these teams may be given, quote, wider latitudes to discover technological counters to US systems. In other words, red teams aren't always just substitutes for Russia or China, for instance, and at times they can get very creative with the ways they go about circumventing American defenses. Maybe the most infamous of these red teams, and an excellent example of just how creative these endeavors can get, came in the form of Richard Dick Marchenko's chaos-inducing unit known to most of us as Red Cell. A legendary special operator, Marchenko led SEAL Team 2 until he was tasked with establishing a new team that could take on rapidly developing terrorist threats. Marchenko's hand-picked group of elite operators would come to be known as SEAL Team 6, the Navy's most elite special operations group. And upon leaving SEAL Team 6 in 1984, Marchenko was then tasked with standing up another new team. This one made up mostly of former SEALs, with a single Force Recon Marine to boot. This team was officially called Op 06D, but was the infamous Red Cell as we know it. Now, Red Cell was formed at the request of the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at the time, Admiral James Ace Lyons, and it was tasked with testing the Navy's vulnerabilities to terrorist attacks by, well, becoming the terrorists themselves. Marchenko's team reportedly infiltrated bases, stole top-secret documents, kidnapped civilian personnel, and even allegedly planted a fake bomb near Air Force One. In fact, Red Cell was arguably a little too successful, with Marchenko ultimately going to prison, officially over the misappropriation of funds, but Marchenko claimed that it was really due to animosity over how easily he and his team embarrassed command elements. Now, I want to be clear that there is no evidence to suggest that a modern iteration of Red Cell is now repeating history, using off-the-shelf technology to demonstrate just how vulnerable American defenses can be right here at home due to legal concerns over jurisdictional responses and a lack of deployed anti-drone assets. But as a student of American military history, I can say that there is certainly precedent for it. And if that's what the drone swarms over Langley and elsewhere ultimately prove to be, well, I wouldn't be all that surprised by it either. Because the conversations these drone swarm incursions are forcing within elements of the defense apparatus right now needed to happen. The American military and law enforcement agencies need to hash out whose responsibility it is to defend against these sorts of attacks, and we need a plan to trace them back to their source. And while these conversations were happening before, they were hypothetical then, and they definitely aren't anymore.